punished for entering the spirit world. A Datura trip report by Agent 11421, posted to earwid.org July 19th, 2005. I had heard a lot of reports about Datura stramonium, and I was anxious to try it. Knowing the dangerous effects of the plant, I decided to start out with some small doses. I first tried chewing 4 seeds, but after an hour, they seemed to have no effect. I then chewed another 4 seeds, but again, the same results, none. I decided to get braver, and the next night, I chewed 20 whole seeds. But after an hour, I felt nothing again. Now I was getting frustrated. I decided to try 40 whole seeds, but once again, I was disappointed with no effects. It was at this point I just totally gave up on the seeds. I then tried smoking the leaves, and I smoked 4 Datura cigarettes one after the other, which again had no effect whatsoever. I live alone and was unbothered by anybody. Being mindful of the dangers of Datura, I took no unnecessary chances. I waited until late evening, about 7 PM, to try the dried leaves. I took a handful of them and boiled them in 3 cups of water for 30 minutes. The concoction I had made was very dark in colour, and I strained the liquid in my strainer into a coffee mug. It smelled and tasted awful, so I decided to sweeten it with 2 tablespoons of honey and drank it down as quickly as possible. I was immensely surprised at how quickly the effects came on. Within 10 to 15 minutes, I began to get a feeling of being drunk. I knew that my best bet was to head straight for bed, where I felt I would be safest. My usual nightly custom was to bring a glass of water into my bedroom with me, but this night I was drunk by the Datura. I lost my balance and fell against the wall, down to the floor and breaking the glass in the process. I returned to the kitchen sink and filled another glass of water, but again my legs gave way under me and I fell down like a drunkard. Once again, I filled a glass with water, but it somehow slipped out of my hands and crashed to the floor. By the time I finally made it to my bathroom, I'd broken 5 glasses, but I wasn't aware of it until the next morning when I saw the damage. Finally resting in my bed, I fell asleep quickly. I had an extremely vivid and realistic dream of this invisible being grabbing me, throwing me head first into a wall. Try as I might, I was unable to see it at all. Once again, he picked me up and slammed me head first into the wall. Then it began to beat me. It grabbed my forearm and snapped it in 2. My bones were protruding from my flesh, and my blood was squirting high up into the air. I pleaded with the being to leave me alone, but it showed me no mercy whatsoever. It picked me up again and slammed me head first into the wall. And it was at that point I woke up and realised I was dreaming. But I was nonetheless quite shaken by the whole ordeal. I had the strangest feeling that the being was punishing me for entering the spirit world and wanted to teach me a lesson of some sort. I tried to sit up in bed, but I felt a very strong gravitational pull as I did do so. It was sort of like the force of gravity was making it difficult for me to sit up. This did not scare me, and I thought little of it. I looked around the room, and everything seemed to be normal, when suddenly, this powerful surge overcame me. I instantly made a sigh ball with my hands and tossed it at the wall. This ended up tearing a large hole in the wall, which worried me senseless, because I feared that my landlord would find out and evict me. It was right now that I laid down and went back to sleep, What I didn't realise at the time was that I was never awake at any time at all. All of this was a very vivid and clear dream. The next morning, I arose and went into my kitchen to prepare my morning coffee. As I sat at the kitchen table, a sight frightened me. It was my beloved house cat. She was laying on the floor still and lifeless, and her body was bloated. As I watched her lifeless body, my heart was deeply saddened. I could only conclude in that moment that she must have drunk some of the Datura brew from the pot on the stove and died from it. Sadly, I sat at the kitchen table for an hour when I noticed that my cat was changing shape. I approached closer and found out that it wasn't even my black cat at all. It was my black leather jacket. I'm happy to say that my cat was fine and in good health. I had no further effects from the Datura after that, but I found it to be an unpleasant experience, which seemed to have an evil connotation to it. I flushed the remaining Datura down the toilet and haven't tried it again since. I was deeply grateful that I was alone during this, because I believe if I had a sitter, he or she may have panicked when I fell so many times and have me rushed to the hospital, and that would have wrecked my career entirely. One thing is certain after all this: everybody's metabolism is different. I'm convinced that the dosage I took would have most probably been lethal to somebody else. My advice? Stay well away from this plant.